Hey everybody, understanding perspective. Now this one is not exciting. It's a pretty boring subject, but it is necessary if you want to do art. You have to know perspective. So we're going to go through 1 and 2 and 3 point perspective and those rules and how they work, and then we're going to show you how to apply those things to your artwork because there's lots of places you can go to find out 1 and 2 and 3 point perspective, but to show them how they practically apply to your piece of artwork is something they don't often talk about. So we're going to try to do that today to get a more profound understanding of what perspective is and how it works. So let's start out with just what with our perspective points 1 and 2 and 3, starting with 1 point perspective, which is what you see here. Now I made a little visual aid here to help us out to understand this. And it's a cube just that I taped up. So this is when you're looking at an object like an object like this, as everything does, exists in 3 dimensions. But when you're looking at it straight on, you only see the one dimension. You see one point. You see these points here inside the cube. They're all converging to one point. But the other pieces, the other edges, the width and the height, they're parallel. They don't converge when you're looking at it straight on. Just the depth of this object converges in 1 point perspective. So let's go to show you that. Here is your depth perspective. All these lines on the depth side are going to a vanishing point. But the vertical lines, the horizontal and vertical lines, they will be straight across. They do not converge when you're doing this. Now, so that's 1 point perspective. So let's go to 2 point perspective. 2 point perspective is when you turn the object like this. Suddenly the lines, the width of the object and the depth of the object, those lines are going to go to two different perspective points as you turn it. So they start to converge. These lines here converge and these lines here converge. So as you can see here, we have the green representing the depth of the object. Now the width, now as it turns, the width is also going to a vanishing point. And that is 2 point perspective in nature. And the horizontal lines are still straight up and down. You're looking at them straight on. They don't converge. So that's why we're still not to 3 yet. So just to 2. Okay, so that is 2 point perspective. 3 point perspective is when you turn the object either this way or this way. Imagine like you're looking up at a building or something like that, or you're on top of a building looking down. That is that's the effect of 3 point perspective. So now you have the width of the object going to a perspective point, the depth of the object converging to a perspective point, and the vertical lines, the height of the object going to a perspective point. That's 3 points. So 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. It's pretty simple, but let's take a look at it now in a setting and see if we can see this stuff more clearly. I'm going to apply it to natural things. Hang on a second. Okay, here's a coffee table. And this is an example I'm using for 1 point perspective. Okay, there's the horizon line. All these lines on the depth of the object are going to a single vanishing point. And that's true with the couch and the coffee table. The vertical lines are still parallel. They're not converging at this from this view. Same with the horizontal lines, not converging. That is 1 point perspective. Here's 2 point perspective. So there's your horizon line. Now the depth of the objects represented with the green lines is they're all going to a vanishing point. And now the width of the object, as you turned it and looked at it from a different view, they are also going to a vanishing point. But as I said before, in 2 point perspective, you're still looking at the object straight on vertically, so these will be non-converging. Okay, here is 3 point perspective. There's the depth going to a point, the width going to converging to a point, and now the vertical are going to a point. So there you go. There's your 3 point perspective. Let's just do a couple of scenes here. Here's a street scene. There's the horizon line. This is an example of 1 point perspective. We have all the lines converging on the street. They're all parallel. They go right to that point. Vertical lines, this is the sidewalk and all that sort of thing, the street, the driveway. Although the driveway's on a tilt here, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be non-converging lines. And of course the vertical, the tree, the house, the chimney, all that stuff. Still vertical, not converging. This is 1 point. Now here's an interesting one. Find the horizon. 1 point perspective. All the lines on the sidewalk and street are going to 1 perspective point. But look here, this one where it turns. I picked this purposely because of the twist. As soon as you move that point off center of your illustration, either off the illustration or to the edge of the illustration, these lines will start to turn. So you'll have 2 point perspective suddenly to make this look right. Vertical lines are still the same. So you get the idea. Okay, so now the question is, how do you apply these things to a drawing? Well, with 1 point perspective, there's no issues. That's pretty straightforward. What happens when you do something like this with 2 point perspective? Why does it look weird? What's wrong with this illustration? Well, the problem is these 2 points right here. In nature, you can't see them. You can only see 1 point one vanishing point at a time in nature, if any. So they're back here in your peripheral vision. So that's why when you bring them too close together on a piece of paper, anything you draw will look weird. It'll look distorted. So what you have to do, and you'll see here, as I move in, those points will start to go into your peripheral vision. It starts to look more right, but it's still distorted. So let me add another one. Okay, it's looking a little better, but it's still not quite there. It still looks a little funky, right? Finally, this one. That looks right. That looks natural. Get rid of the other two. And the reason is because you're looking at it the way you would in real life. So if you're drawing this on the paper, this is the key part of this video that I want you to explain to you. This is your piece of paper. So your perspective points will go off the piece of paper about, you have to kind of get a feel for how far, when you're drawing something, you want them to be, but this is going to look correct. That's why they used to have those big drawing tables in the old days, because you had to plot your points way off the piece of paper. I used to have a giant table like that. Now I use computer, but you had to have it tape on an extra piece of paper or go onto your drawing table and plot those points way off your piece of paper, so that when you came into it, you're looking at something, you're reading a comic, whatever, it looks natural, it looks three-dimensional. You want to be able to walk into that setting and make it feel 3D, make it feel real. So if you put these points too close together, if they're on the page, it's not going to look right. And that's true even if you have something to the side, like this is still two-point perspective. So the point is really close to the edge here. Well, if that's the case, it's going to go farther out here. These 2 points always stay the same distance apart in your peripheral vision. So if you move the object as you're turning, like, this thing here, if you move it ever so slightly, even just slightly, you've all of a sudden got 2-point perspective. That's like full 2-point perspective, but this is, just as soon as you move it, as soon as these two lines turn, they start to converge, you've got 2-point perspective. So even the slightest movement, as you take that one perspective point off the page, now you have to go and plot these points, and that'll look natural. That'll look good. You can kind of feel like you could walk into that. Okay, let's look at the 3-point perspective. Now here, the same thing. When you see all 3 points and you try to draw that on a piece of paper, that it looks distorted, it looks weird. Until you move into it and these points go into your peripheral vision, does it start to look correct. Moving a little farther, and I'm going to create another one here. Now that looks right. That looks three-dimensional. I'm going to pull back and show you then what if this was a piece of paper, where you'd want it to be, approximately. It matters too how close you're viewing the picture. If you're viewing the picture back here, it makes a difference to how you're viewing. If you're viewing a picture close up here, so that there's a lot of play in there. So it doesn't have to be, you don't worry about being too exact, but just so you have a good idea of what's happening with your art, with perspective, as it pertains to a piece of paper. So that is pretty much it. One thing I recommend doing though is when I was younger, I was trying to figure out how to learn perspective and understand it. I did this. I thought of just cutting out a square in a big piece of cardboard, and I walked around, and I would recommend doing this. Walk around and look at things in your house. Look at your kitchen cabinets. Look at your molding on the door. Take a look at 1 and 2. Look at something at 1-point perspective, then turn it and see it at 2-point. Look up at something. Look down at something. Watch as you get into 3-point perspective. Go outside and look at the sidewalk and look like a crazy person walking around the street with this thing. And anyways, and learn it. But you got to get a sense for it. So that'll help you get, as it did for me, get a sense for perspective. And what this area does is it blocks out all this. It's like taking the red area. It blocks out any excessive information, anything in your peripheral vision, and focuses on what you actually see, which is just this square. As you're looking at this represents your piece of paper. So you want to bring it a little rather close to you a little bit and walk around and see. Look at perspective points. And that's how you get a good sense of perspective and a deeper understanding of it. So when you start to draw something, you kind of have a feel already how those lines are going to converge, whether you're doing 1 or 2 or 3-point perspective in your drawing. So keep in mind too, with 3-point perspective, you don't see any vanishing points ever on the page. So these things are just necessary things to know. And I think that's it. That's the main takeaway from it is to get that deeper understanding by observing how it looks on your page. So anyways, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Like and share. The comments are great. Let me know if this helps you. It's a lot of fun to hear the comments, that's for sure. And share it around. I really want to get people to see these tutorials. I think they're solid tutorials, and I'm teaching things that I don't think a lot of other people are teaching quite the same way. So hopefully that's the case, and hopefully I'm helping. So thanks for showing up, and we'll see you next time.